Good morning, Chair.
Good morning, Deb. How are you?
Pretty good.
All right.
Good morning, Chair Kip. Eric here.
Eric, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. I just wanted to bring to your attention, you'll see this change. If you can kind of see on the screen where the logo is, that's my video. When we move into public comment, I will switch it to this view where you can actually follow the timer as it tracks the time they have to speak. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, I gotta just hang on for a second here. I gotta turn my volume up. Let's see. Okay. Go ahead again now, Eric. Oop.
So on my video, when we get to the public comment portion, that'll be the timer. So it will show up on my screen there, so you can follow that as the speaker speaks. And you can see how much time they have, how much they have left. We can also alter this if you want to provide more time for comment, but this has been the standard, so that's where I started.
Okay.
And so it'll look like when I started is it'll start the countdown here, and that'll just let you know how long that commenter has.
Okay. Do we have a lot of people to comment?
We had 4 that registered to comment, sir, so it won't take long, I don't think.
Okay.
All right.
Morning, Chairman Kip. Can you hear me all right?
I can, Jody.
Oh, perfect. Just checking.
Okay, now my volume's way too loud.
I think that was just Jody's talking. That's too loud.
Well, I like loud because then I can hear it.
I'm here.
Good morning, John. John, you're muted.
There we go. Is that better?
Oh, now we can hear you.
All right, good morning.
Good morning. John and Jody. did you receive the minutes from our last meeting?
Yes, yeah, I did, Russ.
I
Okay,
did, yes.
okay,
Yep,
good. All right, they're very short.
very
So-
short. Yep. Morning, Jody.
Hey, John, how are you doing today?
Okay, yeah.
Good.
Hmm.
Good morning, Liz.
Good morning.
Did anybody talk with Kathy recently?
No,
Okay.
Eric, did Kathy say she could not attend?
I'm checking for her response right now. Mr. Chair, Kathy did say that she was not going to be able to attend the meeting, so I think we have everyone that we're going to have at this point, as far as board members are concerned, sir.
Okay. Well, it's 10:31. Are we ready to start the meeting then?
Mr. Chair, if I might, could we delay for just a moment or two? We have a couple that are still trying to log on from the agency here and they're not able to access the link, so we're gonna try resending the link.
Okay, just let me know.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, just an update. We have one more from legal to get logged on and then we'll be ready, sir.
Okay, thank you.
It's all right. We can go ahead. He can join in a minute. I am here.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. Didn't see you there. All right, Mr. Chair, go on ahead.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first thing on our agenda is approval of the minutes from our last meeting, February 26th. Everybody's had a chance to read them. They're short. So we'll need a motion.
Yep, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Yeah, this is Jody. I move that we approve the minutes as read.
okay, second.
I will second.
Okay, and Liz seconds. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, so the minutes from our February meeting have been approved. The next thing on the agenda is board member reports. And we'll just start by districts. Jody, would you go first, please?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman Kip. Let's see, since it's been a while since we met in February, I have attended Region 1 Citizen Advisory Committee meeting in Missoula and 2 Citizen Advisory Committee meetings in Kalispell. I've made a couple visits to Region 1 recently. Just as I was in the area, in Missoula area, I stopped by Travelers Rest and took a little walk around there, and it was a nice visit. Kind of brush up on some history, and also one of my main interests there for that area was I wanted to visit Fort Owen State Park. And if board members, if you'll remember, Fort Owen has recently undergone a lot of reconstruction on the East Barracks there, that historic site. Some degradation had happened to the structure and the walls at Fort Owen on that East Barracks, and that's all been completed. It's just fantastic. They've been working on some interpretive signage and that kind of thing, and just most recently they completed a trail system that goes through that area. That, if you remember, I think the footprint of Fort Owen State Park is pretty small. It's just maybe a couple acres, but kind of finished developing this trail system that kind of directs the visitors through the park to look at the different displays there and everything. It's very nice. Just got completed. The parking lot's all done. It's just real clean. The new signage is nice. And I believe there's a ribbon cutting ceremony, kind of a grand reopening, coming up in June, I believe the 7th. I'm not absolutely sure. But if I get that information and get an invite to that, I'll make sure and pass it along to the board members. When on my last trip up to Kalispell for the Citizen Advisory Committee there, it was great. We had, they hosted it at Lone Pine State Park, had a barbecue, updates from all of the managers of that region. Of course, I love hearing from the Regional Parks and Recreation Manager, Dave Landstrom, has always just got lots of things going. Great informative updates from him. And on my way up, I made a little loop around Flathead to visit some of the sites there and take in some of the improvements. Some of the highlights were on Yellow Bay. There's been a dock replacement there, but also they just completed a dynamic beach project early spring, which is real similar to what we saw at Summers Beach. Same contractor, and which is just fantastic to kind of make it at the beach nicer. And it's an erosion control project. So that's completed. Then new boat ramp extension at Wayfarer State Park, and then down to Summers Beach at the far north end of the lake. I know several of us have met there and saw that park when that was our new addition to the park. There's been some improvements there. There's been 2 camp host sites that have been added to, finished with the hookups for the camp host and stuff. So that's going to be a manned site. And one thing that I was just real happy to see is they've finished up the dynamic beach project. It's the final, the smaller kind of pebble beach that was installed on top of the original dynamic beach that was there. So that gives us a little bit more erosion protection when the water's high. And then because there was a couple of years ago, we had higher water than expected, and it did, some came over that. But so that's been completed, and it's also makes it much nicer walking, a much nicer beach for people to enjoy that when the water comes up and people bring their families and their kids down and just make a great place for them. So then also, let's see, at Summers, there'll be quite a few more improvements coming up. If we go back and think of some of the items that we've discussed and approved for Summers Beach, I think there's going to be some more permanent parking to be established there, vaulted toilets, probably a hand boat launch, and more walking paths throughout the park. So it'll all be done in phases as the funding comes in and planning. So we'll have to look for more improvements on Summers in the future. And then probably the highlight of my trip was visiting the Big Arm Archery Range. Several of us were there when we looked at that property. They were looking to do that archery range, and that is now complete and open. They had a big grand opening the end of April with the governor came down and the director was there. Just real exciting. The facility is just fantastic. The shelter, there's storage there. There's vaulted toilets, a very nice paved parking lot. The landscaping is nice. And then the system itself, the loop, has about 12, I think it was 12 actual stations on it for that archery range. There's one ADA range, or one ADA site, I would say, if you would call it that. And then there's an elevated, there's one elevated target as well. So I mean, Russ, you're going to have to check it out. It's really cool. And I know you'll have to teach me. I'm not an archer, but it looks like a blast. So that's pretty much the highlights there. So it's just a lot of great projects, a lot of great work being done, and the folks that worked on that, like the archery range, Summers Beach, just fantastic. So it's good to see things coming together. That's all I got.
Okay, Jody, thank you. That was great. Next, District 2, there was an Earth Day celebration at the Clark's Lookout State Park near Dillon. Kite flying and cleaning was on the agenda for that day. It was a typical windy day at the park there, so I can't believe it. The phone. So we did that, and then I recently returned from a road trip. We were gone for a couple weeks. We visited several state parks and then a couple national parks. First, we visited Pictograph Caves near Billings. Visited with the park manager, Richard Tuke, and the staff before we hiked to the three main caves. That was the first day that they had a host there. It's the same people that have come each year, so it's a very important part to the parks is to have the host. There's no camping at Pictograph Caves, and it's probably got parking for about 15 or 20 vehicles. They get quite a few school kids that go down there. It's 6 miles or so south of Billings. After that, we traveled over to the Tongue River Reservoir State Park, and we camped there for 4 nighs. There's 165 campsites on the lake. It's on the west side, the campsites. Some of it is paved. There are some sites with electricity. Some of the sites are rustic, where you would just pitch a tent and not all the amenities. But visited with the manager there, Raymond Schill, and he talked about some new housing that they're putting in for park visitors. They're putting 3, and they're like the Montana Shed Center buildings. They're not gonna have heat, they're not gonna have air conditioning, they're not gonna have water, they're just basically shells, and that's where they're gonna start with them. They're building the pads right now. They're coming out of, I guess, Hardin, the buildings that they're putting in. So that'll give people that don't have a tent or a camper a place to stay there. So they'll be probably pretty hot in the summer and pretty cold in the winter till they get them all finished up. Raymond told me that they were having a meeting later that day over at the Rosebud Battlefield. And they were meeting with the Heritage Manager and the Crow and the Northern Cheyenne tribes to review and walk the property. They were planning a prescribed burn. It got a little late. It's getting dry, the drought. They didn't have the water this spring, so they're not going to do the prescribed burn. They decided not to do it this year because of conditions. The Rosebud Battlefield, they've got an excellent signage there, interpretive. There's half a dozen signs at least that are in an arch, and you can look out onto the battlefield, and it talks about the whole history of it. Really, really a neat place to go and see. There's an old house and garage there that is still the parks, and they have someone that's kind of maintaining that area out there, lives there. That at one time, our game warden Dylan, that's where he started, was in the parks and lived in that house. So I took a picture and brought that home to him and shared. Back down to the reservoir, it is really nice. We fished. I caught smallmouth bass on a fly rod. There's a lot of fishermen, and most of them come from Sheridan, Wyoming. So they are buying a non-resident fishing license. They're paying non-resident camp fees. So probably a pretty big revenue source is that Sheridan, Wyoming area. We also went down below the dam and fished on the Tongue River for a couple hours. But what a neat place, and very well taken care of. There's a marina there, boat rentals, so the whole works. From there, we traveled down to Devil's Tower in Mount Rushmore and Crazy Horse Monument, camped a couple days in Deadwood, did the out-of-state thing. Next, we traveled up to Medicine Rocks State Park and camped there for 2 nights. Visited with Garrett Jerikoff, park manager. Medicine Rocks has extended day use hours to accommodate the night sky viewing, and it's from 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. You're able to be in there. If you're camping, obviously, you can stay there. The park plans to build a new gravel parking area this summer, or probably this spring, to accommodate people that are coming out there for night skies. I was up at midnight and got some awful pretty pictures. There's just no light around. There's 8 campsites in the park. None of them have water or anything, but there is a pit for a fire pit and some tables. One of my favorite parks to go to and just walk around in the rocks and take pictures, see the faces. I'll share some of them with everybody after the meeting. We traveled down to Miles City then and looked at the train depot, the Miles City train depot, and the renovation that our park board approved in August of 22 of last year for $2 million. The site's in the planning stage still. Garrett told me that they haven't got to a point where they can really work on it yet. They're just still trying to figure out what they're going to do with it. The huge potential. What a neat building. The foundation, the bricks are wonderful. The roof, the boards are not. It'll be an ambitious project, but it could be a really neat addition if it's able to get finished and become a state park. We traveled from there over to Cooney, and we stayed at Marshall Cove, the first campsite when you get to the lake. It's near the dam. They've got bathrooms, they've got showers. It's coin operated showers. You buy so much time with quarters to shower. On this trip, we were prior to when they really opened these parks, and you couldn't reserve, and so some of those amenities were not there yet early. Everything opened up last weekend around for reserving campsites and such. But prior to us getting there, they had a big windstorm, and it ripped the boat dock out at Marshall Cove and floated down against the dam. The game warden from let's see, Laurel, I believe is the game warden up there, Frank. He went out and he pulled the boat ramp, the boat dock back to the ramp at Marshall Cove, and then they pulled it out of the water with a truck. So it's setting up. The parking lot is muddy and underwater. The waves were so high from the windstorm that it washed out some of the road right against the beach. That lake or the reservoir would go down through the summer, and you would have a lot of space between the road and the campsites there. But it was full. The storm hit. There's some damage there to the campsites and to the road. So there'll have to be some repairs there. Next thing, we traveled to Gray Cliff, Prairie Dog Town. And it was one of them warm, sunny, non-windy days, and the dogs were out playing, and it was a neat experience. They've got some great signage there to tell you about prairie dogs. Very easy on and off right there at an off ramp to Gray Cliff. So we spent an hour or so there. Then we traveled to Headwater State Park, and that was our first disappointment. We didn't get a campsite. So visited with the park manager, Alice, about the recent addition of the private property and where they were at with that. So no campsite. We did Plan B. We drove back to Dillon. It was a wonderful trip. We visited 7 state parks. That time of year before they start reserving campsites is kind of a neat time to go visit. Similar, Jody, when you were up there in the Flathead, they probably weren't real busy, but nice to be able for us to get in and see some things. But I had a great trip. So that's the end of my report. Next was Liz.
Well, good morning, everybody. I am just amazed at everything that's going on. Spring is very busy across the whole state, as you can imagine. Of note, one of the notes from one of my local meetings is the lack of bow hunter education instructors. So I'm sure it might be a common theme throughout the state. If anybody knows of anybody, let's get them hooked up. Lots of rocks are going in. I haven't heard any reports of them blowing away like you witnessed, although that wind was pretty brutal. All the parks are preparing for more people and more visitors, some neat night viewing opportunities as well. And then a little bit unrelated to state parks was I just wanted to give a shout out to the Montana Outdoors magazine. The Driver's Guide to Montana special edition came out, is absolutely fantastic. The photo issue is my favorite issue. However, this one may be right up there with it. In fact, I think it would be a great thing to give to schools and tourists, and specifically here where I am, I have a lot of out-of-state students that are here visiting, and I just think it was just such a great issue. So congratulations to everybody who worked on that. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Liz. John, you're next.
Good morning, everyone. Yep, I recently visited the Region 5 park headquarters at Lake Elmo and talked with Ryan Pagan, who's he is the manager for the Region 5, and she's got a lot of things going on. He's a busy guy. Just went over a lot of things, the maps, and reiterated what parks are in District 5, and we talked about Region 7, and the Miles City train station. We thought that was going well. And I met with Emily Taylor, who's the park ranger at Lake Elmo State Park, and they had drained the lake, and to get rid of some invasive clams, Asian clams, and that was a success. They haven't seen, to this date, they haven't seen any more, so that's a good thing. They while they had it drained, they did some improvements, fish habitat, and some jetties, rock jetties, built a boardwalk and improved trails there. So that was kind of good. And I also met Trenton Hessler, I think is how you pronounce his name. He's the block management or Region 5 block management manager there. He's a pretty nice guy. And he said he's been busy, has a lot of success adding block management, so that's a good deal. See what else. I think that's about it. Yeah. Yeah, we're working on meeting with the Region 7 manager. And what was his name? Russ? Did you meet with him in Mount City?
No, I just met with Jared Koff. And
Oh, yeah.
I met him down at Medicine Rocks.
Yeah, I forget his name, but
Yep.
Anyway, we're scheduling a meeting with him in the future. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Next thing is director's report. Director Temple, are you ready?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Not a lot to add to what you've already heard. Park season's cranking up, starts with a bang on Memorial Day, but folks have been busy all spring getting ready for that. Board member Moransek, the Region 7 Parks Manager's name is Brian Berkey. So if you're reaching for that, I know it got mentioned by board member Loomis, but I do want to highlight the opening of that big arm shooting range. That's a new federal program that we got money for in the 21 session. It's a 90-10 match. It's PR, Pittman Robertson money that pays for that. And we're looking for opportunities at all of our sites, but specifically focused on state parks for new shooting opportunities around the state. So if you get a chance and you're in that neck of the woods, it's a really great addition to that state park, a really great opportunity for folks to get outside. The last thing I'll just give you an update on is as we come in, we are in budget construction season for the 25 legislative session. This body is obliged to review and approve the department's budget priorities. So you will see those, you will see a meeting coming up for you in the next probably month or two to get your advice and consent on the department's budget priorities. So that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to the action items. The first action item is the Smith River Biennium Rule. And Deb O'Neill, the acting division administrator, will be the presenter. Deb, are you ready?
I am.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. So we only have 2 items for you today. The first one is basically reapproval of the 2022 to 2024 biennial rule for the Smith River State Park and River Corridor. We did have to update some of it, so there are some changes. None of it is substantive. You should have a document there that easily shows you the changes with highlights and underscores or strike throughs to show you what's changed. They are also highlighted in the information sheet in 3 bullets. Basically what we had to do, we had to update language change to match the ARM and for consistency. And we also had to update references to the public use ARM rules that were adopted last fall and winter. We only received 1 comment online and 1 comment via email. And those identified as comments to the biennial rule. I'm not sure that they might have been to the ARM, but they identified as comments to this. Additionally, the rules that you will be reauthorizing or reapproving received considerable comment in 2022 as well. We do ask that the board approve alternative B to adopt the proposed 2024-2026 biennial rule, including the changes. So we ensure that we manage the Smith under the appropriate rules. That's all I have for you.
Okay, discussion from the board members. Liz, did you have something for us here?
Yep. So I just had a question kind of / point of clarification. So these draft biennial rules do not fall under the regular ARM rules. Is that correct?
Correct. These are not ARM rules. These do not go through the Secretary of State. These are rules that are adopted directly by the board.
Sure. Because if they had to go through that process, they would probably be expired before they got passed, right? Being a biennial
In this
rule.
case, they might have been, yes.
All right. And so I do know perhaps there's been some concern about the additional language regarding the revoked outfitter licenses being reallocated. Can you give us just a little background on that or talk a little about that?
Sure, Chair Kip, Board Member Whiting. I believe Legal Counsel Jeff Hindoin is on. And if he can come on and answer some of those questions on what we're doing. Basically, it's a consistency thing. We wanted to make them consistent with the Bitterroot rules, but I'll let Jeff come on. I think he's on.
Yes,
There he is. There he is.
it should be here, I think. Camera might not be working. If everybody hear me okay?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
All right. Yeah, there we go. Mr. Chair, Ms. Whiting, that piece of the biennial rule, this kind of gets a little bit to the sequencing, and recognizing the concern in the comments, but the only piece of the biennial rule that references the revoked or abandoned commercial lawns is that portion on page 9 under Roman numeral 9 of the commercial outfitter float trips. And
Mhm.
that was from kind of a sequencing standpoint, put in there to be consistent with what we were, proposing conceptually for moving forward with the arms. If there's any, discomfort with that language there in terms of perhaps not wanting to have that structure be a part of the proposed MAPA rulemaking, which is the second piece of this. I don't think there's any issue with just not including that in this biennial rule structure. I think as was pointed out by one of the comments we received from FOAM, the Fishing Outfitters Association of Montana, the department already has the authority to reallocate ration units of use in any case of revoking a permit. And to be clear, historically, it's been a very, very rare circumstance, as I understand it. It's never occurred in the Smith River system, and to my knowledge, it's only occurred, once or twice in the Beaverhead Big Hole system where we have other ration units of use. So if there's any sort of discomfort on the part of the board about including that, if you were to, approve the proposed biennial rule without that language in Roman 9 sub C, it would essentially be the same biennial rule, subject, of course, to sort of the consistency changes we made to track with the other arm and that we adopted last year.
Perfect. And would we be in order of making that amended change before? Are we in order to make that voice amendment to that proposal and then approve that? I guess what's the process?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Ms. Whiting, I'd certainly defer to Ms. Clerget about the process for how you guys want to tee that up as a motion, but I think you could just modify the motion that you have in the agenda sheet to just approve it, with the exception of that amendment in Roman 9 sub C.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
and if Ms. Clerget says it's appropriate, I would like to move an amended version of our motion. Actually, we haven't even made the motion, so it's probably not in order yet. But that would be just, Mr. Chair and members of the board, that would probably be my preference, that we just remove that sentence.
Okay. Sarah, did you have something more to say?
I think you got it, just that we need a motion first and then you can have the second and then the discussion. And since the motion hasn't been made yet, you can make the motion however you want.
Okay.
Oh,
So
Mr.
Go ahead, please.
So, Mr. Chair, I would like to move that we approve the biennial draft rules as presented with removing Roman numeral 9 subsection C on page 9, to strike that one sentence.
Okay, and we're striking out or the reallocation of revoked or abandoned commercial launches. So,
Correct.
Correct.
okay, do I have a second?
I second that, Mr. Chair.
The motion. Do we take public comments at this point?
You can have discussion on the motion first if you'd like, or you can
Okay.
take public comment and then have discussion, either way.
Okay, let's, some discussion, there. If this is part of the ARM rule, this language, the ARM rule is going to take quite a process before that would be approved. So in my view, I think that this is premature to have it in our biennium rules. We can come back, we pass the ARM rule, that language remains, then we can come back to a biennium rule and put that language in. That's my belief. John or Jody, any thoughts?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman? Yeah, that makes sense to me, and I also understand that maybe the reallocation verbiage is maybe redundant, as one of our commenters has said, and then abandoned being extremely rare. And so at least at this point, it seems like we can, the document is still functional without that sentence. So, and we can address this much deeper when if this was to enter into the ARM process is the way I understand it. If that makes sense to the board.
Okay, thank you. They've had concessionaire permits on the Smith River for, I think, 30 years. They've never had any abandoned or any revoked. If they're making this to where it follows the Bitterroot rules, the Bitterroot rule says the permittee who does not submit an annual report completely and timely will have their permit revoked. You got to have a deadline. And then the next, permit is considered abandoned after 3 consecutive years of non-activity reported on an annual report. If you're not using it, you're losing it. And then revoked or abandoned permits will be made available to all commercial fishing floating outfitters via a random lottery to be conducted by the department. That says that it's going to go out to everyone. And that's what the Beaverhead does. If they have abandoned permits or available permits, they go out to a new one boat outfitter, and then he has to prove up on them, and then he actually can own those days and do it. So I'm glad that I got a copy of the Bitterroot rules. That gives me some clarification about, abandoned and revoked. Where would they even come from? So, anyone else on our board? Discussion? Okay, so then we would move to any public comment.
Mr. Chairman, I have no hands raised at this time on this topic.
Okay, thank you. So if there's no more discussion, we'll vote on this as Member Whiting's motion to approve everything without that language in on page 9. So let's just do a hand vote here. Jody? Yes or
Aye.
no? Aye.
Aye.
Russ is aye. Liz?
Aye.
And John? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so The biennium rule passes 4-0. We'll note that Kathy did not attend this meeting, and as of the motion she proposed, I guess we didn't amend it because we didn't need to. Okay, so the next thing is the correction of existing arm and new commercial use arm. Presenter again is Deb O'Neill, our acting divisional administrator. Deb, are you ready there?
I am, thank you. So this is the administrative rulemaking. So this goes through the entire Montana Administrative Procedure Act rulemaking process, where we would submit this to the Secretary of State. So what we're asking the board to approve is actually just to initiate rulemaking, not actual language that will be developed, and there will be a comprehensive public and a robust public comment process for that. So what these are, when we initiated rulemaking last year, we had an error in the date, and we included a June 15th date as the end of peak season, and it should have been July 15th. So we're asking to initiate rulemaking to correct that. And then also we are asking for additional language to be proposed in the new rules, which would include a provision allowing for what we were just talking about, the reallocation of any revoked or abandoned commercial launches among the existing pool of commercial permit holders. And again, this is the same way that we do this on the Bitterroot River. And this is just to be consistent. If the board does approve the request to initiate the rulemaking process, the next step will be for us to draft that language proposed by, or draft language, and public comment would be taken as part of the MAPA process. So there will be a robust public engagement process there. So again, we're asking you to initiate the rulemaking, not to approve language right now. Again, we do have legal counsel Jeff Hindoin here to answer any questions on the ARM process or ARM rule. Otherwise, we would ask that the board approve the rulemaking initiation.
Okay, thank you. Discussion from our board members, anyone? I question, so we adopt this, and we move it forward. Then I guess this is for Deb or maybe even Sarah. The department works on the language. Does that language come back to the board for us to look at before it and comment on to the Fish and Game, or does it go out to the public and everybody comments? Or Jeff, whoever can answer that.
I can take that. Sure. So after the initiation stage, if you guys choose to initiate the rule, the department will go back and draft the rule, and as consistent as we can with your instructions. And then we'll bring the rule language as drafted back to you. You have the opportunity at that point to either redline the language we propose, to send it to the Secretary of State, or to decline to go forward at all. And if you choose to redline, you can either redline it at the meeting and then vote that it goes forward, or you can suggest that the department need to go back and do some more redlining before you see it again. Once you decide that it goes to the Secretary of State process, then at that point, public comment and a public hearing will be held. And then we'll come, excuse me, then we'll come back to you after the public comment period and all of the comments are submitted, and you will get a packet, essentially, if there are multiple, of all of the raw public comments, and then any proposals. You get a draft of the response, essentially, that the department believes that would be the board's response, and then you can also redline those responses at that point. And then if you approve it, it goes on to be published as a rule after that.
Okay, that was helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, any other discussion from our board?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Member Loomis.
I maybe while we're here, maybe a opportunity for me to learn a little bit of this system. How consistent are the rules that guide commercial use permits? Like because we're talking about making this consistent with the Bitterroot. Are there, what rules should be consistent? I think, Russ, we talked a little bit about, as far as the rivers having different dates and those kind of things, but we're talking about being consistent with the river and commercial use there. What other, in other words, how more consistent would that be in other areas? Is the goal to be consistent with, like, is there other permits that are granted commercial use permits that would also look at this? Does that make sense, Russ?
Yes, in my mind, your rivers are different. The Smith is an extended float trip for 5 nights, 60 miles. They have a limited pool of outfitters that offer those services. And then there would be some limited times that could be the water levels. And it could be a time of year. Now that we have the new rule to pack your own waste out, you would have to have someone at the takeout to take care of that waste, and they may not be there. So you might not be able to offer the Smith River, as much as some people would like. But the Beaverhead and the Big Hole, their outfitters have their permits. They're limited to X amount of boats in X amount of sections. And they have their days, the number of days that they're able to use that. So each river is different, and you're not going to make it consistent, but some of the language, I believe, can be consistent. And what they're talking about here, as far as any revoking or reallocation of abandoned permits, I think that is consistent. So,
Mr. Chair,
yes,
may I add, I agree with what you just said. Rivers are different systems. We have to allow for some flexibility, but we want to be consistent where we can. And this is opportunity where we think we can be consistent.
okay, that sounds great.
Yep. Thank you for that.
Okay, any other board member comment? Okay, I'd anyone offer a motion on this?
I will, Mr. Chairman. I move the Parks and Recreation Board approve the initiation of the rulemaking by FWP as requested.
Okay, I need a second.
A second.
Okay, Member Loomis seconds. So we'll have public comment now. Have we got anybody?
Mr. Chairman, I show no hands raised at this time, sir.
Okay, well, then we'll call for a vote. Again, I'll call you and have you raise your hand so we can see it. Jody
Aye.
and Russ is an aye. And then,
Aye. Liz is gone.
what happened to Liz?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm still here. I just have to
Oh.
plug my phone in. I'm an I.
Okay, and that's an aye. So, this motion passes 4-0. So, we'll move on to the next item that's on here, and this was something that I asked to be put here. I'm a little bit confused at the difference between a biennium rule and a board policy. In our meeting in, let's see, would been in May 27th of 21. That was an item on our agenda. Beth Shoemate presented that. We approved it for 2 more years. And so now what I'm seeing, what was sent to us is a policy that's dated in 2019, 2021. We would have approved that for 21 to 23, and I'm not seeing that. And Deb, you had mentioned some of this when we were visiting this morning. Can you straighten that out for us?
Sure can, Chair Kip. So this was approved, as Chair said, in 2019, signed by Director Williams and Angie Grove as board chair. In 2021, I found the cover sheet for the board. It did come forward in 2021 to be reviewed. I think there was a little bit of a misunderstanding on if it needed to be reapproved or reviewed. The policy does not expire, so it didn't need to necessarily be reapproved unless there were any amendments. So that was a slight mistake, I think, in the cover sheet and what we were asking of the board. What we ask of you is to review it every 2 years, and assuming you did in 2021 when you reapproved it, it was good for another 2 years before it needed to be reviewed again. That was last summer or last spring. So it didn't expire. The policy does not expire, but the policy does need to be reviewed again. And we're going to ask that you do that again for our next meeting. Because we want to give the public an opportunity to make any comments on any changes that we make. Chair Kip and I were talking this morning. There's 2 obvious changes we need to make. We need to remove Hell Creek from the policy, and we need to add Summers Beach to the policy. So those are 2 obvious changes that we would need to make, that you would need to approve to be added and deleted from the policy. And then if you guys wanted to review anything else, you could and make amendments. If you would like us to, we would ask our staff to review and see if there's any amendments we would put forth to this policy as well for the next meeting.
Okay, that's helpful. I was afraid that it had just expired, and it doesn't. So that's good. And then we will see something probably at our next meeting about this, correct?
Yes, we would do it before the next meeting to allow ample time for public review or public comment. And like I said, at least 2 items that I just mentioned will be put up for an amendment, and then if there's anything else that you find that you could offer an amendment to as well.
Okay. Anybody else have questions on that?
Chairman,
Jody?
I would just say I invite the not necessarily, I guess, questions at this time, but really for the Parks Board to review that and look it over and provide any input they think, because this was written and first approved, I think, in 2019. So
Yes.
we could certainly just review it and see if there's any things we thought that might strengthen the document a little bit. We can sure provide our input that way. But I think it's a great way to kind of bring a focus in on the parks and bring attention to what's going on and give the board and the agency kind of get them focused and direction on those who are big fans of parks and outdoor recreation.
Okay. Any other comments there? So, I guess we would ask if there's any public comment for items that are not on this agenda. Eric, do we have anybody?
Mr. Chairman, I don't see any hands raised at this time.
Okay. Well, that would, that should, conclude our meeting. Someone want to move to close this meeting? We can stay all day.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
Okay, a second.
Mr. Chairman, I second that motion.
Okay, all in favor, just a voice here. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I think that's it. We adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.